watching Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Stone Shields. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be spending a little time talking about Bengals defensive coordinator Al Golden, his vision, and how that ties into who Cincinnati selected in the 2025 NFL Draft. Also going to go over some important offseason dates. Before we know it, it will be training camp time and mandatory OTA time as well for Cincinnati. Also, Fox Sports released some NFL power rankings following up from the NFL Draft. We'll talk about where the Bengals fluctuated considering what they did in the NFL Draft and where I think they should be ranked. Also, Sam Hubbard made some comments publicly for the first time since his retirement. We will dissect those comments as well. And also, The Athletic put together a piece where they listed the best value pick for each of the 32 teams in the National Football League. We will find out who Paul Dehner Jr. had for Cincinnati, and that does, in fact, align with who I have as well. But before we get into that, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_, trying to get up to 600 followers here as soon as possible. I believe we're about 20 or so away from making that happen. Remember, all of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page, so you don't want to miss out. Help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter. All right, so let's start here with what Duke Tobin had to say about Al Golden and kind of the Cincinnati Bengals draft process. As we've talked about a lot here on the channel, it's very obvious just considering who Cincinnati picked that, Al Golden really had a significant pull in the say in terms of what Cincinnati was able to do throughout the draft on that weekend. And Duke Tobin came out there and emphasized just how big of a role Al Golden did have. And he also had a quote that said, "What he said holds a weight with me. I want his vision to work." So I think really Shemar Stewart, Demetrius Knight Jr., and Barrett Carter, those picks specifically, those are Al Golden guys. And obviously everyone within the organization needed to align and agree on that. But I think Al Golden really did have significant pull in this draft. Also want to make a note about South Carolina and the pro day for South Carolina. Zach Taylor actually planned to go to South Carolina's pro day to see Demetrius Knight Jr., among others, several studs on that Gamecock defense last year for Shane Beamer. But right before that pro day was scheduled to happen, Cincinnati actually paid T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase. So Taylor, of course, had to stay in the city of Cincinnati for that. But of note, Zach Taylor doesn't really go to many pro days. Last year, the only one he went to was Texas, and Texas had a ton of guys drafted in 2024. And again, he was planning on going to South Carolina to take a look at Demetrius Knight and ended up not going. But that's some foreshadowing there. Bengals basically are saying, hey, there's a guy that we really like on South Carolina, and obviously they did, taking Demetrius Knight Jr., and he really fits into Al Golden's vision on the defensive side of the football as well in terms of his play style, right? That intelligence, that tackling, that versatility, and Al Golden specifically and Duke Tobin kind of mentioned wanting to go back to the core values of that 2020 NFL Draft, where Cincinnati obviously hit that one out of the park with guys like Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Logan Wilson, and not just necessarily from a skill perspective, but a leadership perspective as well. They wanted to draft guys in this year's class that didn't have any red flags, that were going to come in, be leaders, good teammates. They certainly got that in Demetrius Knight Jr. He's a guy that's married and has 2 kids, and he's 24 years of age. That's a mature guy right there. And also with Barrett Carter, who they took in round 4 out of Clemson. The Bengals obviously have not been shy about taking Clemson Tigers in the past. Under Zach Taylor's run here as the head coach, they've taken numerous Clemson Tigers in the NFL Draft, obviously doing it again this year here with Barrett Carter, and he too fits into that vision that Al Golden wants, and they really like his play style, his leadership, right? It's the guy that was a captain over at Clemson, and really, and Paul Dehner Jr. breaks this down really well in his piece over for The Athletic, there really wasn't any other linebackers that they would feel comfortable taking after Barrett Carter. So if they wanted that second linebacker, they had to go out there and get him. The Bengals pondered taking a defensive tackle in round 4, something they've done a lot in previous years, but ultimately that didn't fit, and they went with Barrett Carter, who again is an Al Golden guy. He gets him another linebacker here in this class. And obviously that linebacker room needs to get back to where it was when the Bengals went on that Super Bowl run in 2021 if they are going to make the playoffs and be a competitive football team. Pin comment time here on today's show. What's your confidence level in Al Golden? Let me know. Scale it for me in the comment section of today's show. Obviously, Cincinnati is going all in on Al Golden, and I think this draft really just reflects that. But regardless, scale it for me, 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. let's go over some important offseason dates here on today's show. The Bengals offseason program started on April 21st, and that's going to continue through this week as well. The Bengals social media teams put out a lot of content in regards to that, so check that out if you haven't done so already. Also, rookie minicamp is May 9th, which I believe is this Friday. A lot of other teams across the league have multiple days in which they call rookie minicamp. Cincinnati just has that one day there on May 9th. By the way, we'll have rookie minicamp winners and losers for you guys either sometime at the end of this week or early next week. So make sure you stick around and stay tuned for that. And then you have the OTAs. Those workouts May 27th to the 29th and June 2nd through the 4th. Really hope to see all the Bengals under contract show up for those. But then you have that mandatory minicamp, which is June 10th through the 12th. Really would expect all of Cincinnati guys to be there that are under contract. Besides, of course, Trey Hendrickson would be a shock to see him at Paycor Stadium and the Cincinnati Bengals practice facility for that period, considering he does not have a new contract here at this point. Do want to mention, Joe Burrow, of course, has been around the team, has been at the facility, but there was a couple days that obviously it's been well documented. He's down in Florida right now for the F1 stuff. I don't think I really have too much of an issue. It is kind of curious that there was some stuff going on here with the team, and I don't know if Joe Burrow necessarily was partaking in that, but he has been around a lot this offseason, and did just want to make note of that. There's no story out there in regards to, hey, Joe Burrow wasn't at this, but did think it was worth mentioning because you do see some other quarterbacks around the league are still getting involved with some of these offseason programs. We'll continue with our show here in a minute, but first, want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals Draft Hats are still out, and they're still available, despite, of course, the fact that the draft is in the rearview mirror here at this point. Really love some of these hats there over at Fanatics. I think they did a really tremendous job here this year, so these are some of the coolest ones that I've seen in recent memory. That's chatsports.com/Bengals Draft Hats, and we'll put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. As I mentioned at the top, we had some new power rankings that we're going to discuss here on today's show. Fox Sports released new NFL power rankings after the NFL draft and had the Bengals at number 12, which was a slight fluctuation of where they were at prior to the NFL draft. We'll go through it here 1 to 10. Obviously, you got Philadelphia there at the top. Thought they knocked their draft out of the park, and they already were at 1, of course, before the NFL draft as those Super Bowl champions. Detroit there at number 2, no real issues with that. Obviously, an early exit in the playoffs. Buffalo 3, Baltimore 4. Certainly going to cause Cincinnati a lot of trouble, but Baltimore in the postseason, as we've seen in recent years, has struggled quite a bit. Kansas City there at 5. It feels like kind of a low spot for them, but, they haven't done a ton here this offseason. Obviously, there's some important guys on their team that are aging quite a bit. Commander 6, that's a little aggressive for my liking. Obviously, they had an unbelievable year last year, but 6 seems a little bit rich for me. 7, the Los Angeles Rams. Think they're going to win a lot of football games and perhaps go on a run to get back to the Super Bowl this year. Chargers there at 8. Again, feels a bit like a reach. Buccaneers 9, Packers at 10, falling back 2 spots after the NFL draft. Then you have the Niners at 11 and the Cincinnati Bengals at number 12. I don't have too big of an issue with this. Obviously, I think Cincinnati is a better football team than 12, but if you look at their roster, a lot of the same people are coming back, and you missed the playoffs last year, so that's something you kind of got to weigh in hand and understand that, hey, not a ton of moves have been made. Yeah, they've done a lot of good things bringing back T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, the team that missed the playoffs last season. Here's what David Hellman had to say, who came up with these rankings for Fox Sports. He said, I didn't love the Bengals draft, but the good news is they have the least amount of work to do among any of the non-playoff teams. The offense is going to average 28 points per game. New defensive coordinator Al Golden just has to have his unit be decent for this to be a playoff team. Like I said, overall, I don't really have any issues with this list from Fox Sports. I personally think they are better than that, but based on what they did on the football field last year and what they added here this year through free agency and the draft, I don't know if it's necessarily enough to crack the top 10. But obviously with Joe Burrow, the guys that they have on offense, it's a team that can beat anybody any given week, but that defense needs significant improvement. You're really kind of pushing all your chips in on Al Golden, which I think is a fine decision. I think it's going to work out, but I understand why they wouldn't be ranked inside the top 10 because they haven't done a ton in terms of a personnel difference here this season. Rank the Bengals among NFL teams 1 to 32. Let me know in the comment section. Be honest with us. Do you have them outside the top 10, or are they a team that you think should be in the top 10? Let me know right now in the comments of today's show. Sam Hubbard has spoken for the first time publicly since announcing his retirement. Did just kind of want to dive into some of these comments here from Sam Hubbard. This is what he said. He said, I had a great career. I had some opportunities to play elsewhere, but I really wanted to, retire as a Bengal. It meant so much to me playing my whole career here, continuing to live here, and continue to work with my foundation and expand our impact on Cincinnati for life. Bengal for life. And I'm so happy with how everything played out. I'm very happy that Sam Hubbard isn't going to be playing elsewhere. It would have just been weird to see him in a different color jersey, right? He just kind of epitomizes what it means to be a Cincinnati Bengal. Obviously, I wish he could play a couple of more years and try to get that ring with Joe Burrow and company, but the body was wearing down. He lost a lot of weight here this offseason. You had the injuries as well. It takes a toll on you playing at the National Football League, especially when you play kind of that edge rusher position and you're kind of getting in car wrecks. Play in and play out. And as I said when he did retire, I still stand by this. I view him as a Ring of Honor candidate. I truly do. Obviously, he didn't play a ton and, wasn't a part of too much winning. But I really think when you kind of look back at this Cincinnati Bengals football team and the transition to winning, the transition to Joe Burrow, Sam Hubbard really was helping spearhead that kind of movement, I would say. And I think he had an immense impact on this team, this organization, this city. And, some people might scoff and say, Ring of Honor, that seems a bit rich. I don't think so at all. Sam Hubbard was a tremendous player for this team and this city, and I wouldn't be surprised if one day you see his name up around Paycor Stadium. Lastly, to close out today's show, The Athletic dropped their best value picks for each team and chose Taj Brooks for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I absolutely, completely agree with Paul Dehner Jr., who gave this designation for the Cincinnati Bengals. Brooks, of course, taken in the 6th round by Cincinnati. And, it's been well documented how deep this class was from a running back perspective. And being able to get a player like Brooks where they got him really was a great job by the Cincinnati Bengals front office, their scouting department, their, everybody that oversaw their draft process. I think now, based off what happened in free agency and the NFL draft, running back's one of your strong points on your football team. And kind of going into this offseason, it was one of your weakest points there and really was kind of a need for your football team. And I think you completely cleaned that up. Out of all the positions that Cincinnati addressed here this offseason, they made it their best job here at the running back spot. Taj Brooks, is he going to be your running back 2 this year? No, barring something crazy. I don't think he will be, but I think set up for years to come when you phase off from guys like Zach Moss and Samaje Perine, Taj Brooks really could be that next guy to Chase Brown. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already at youtube.com/BengalsTV. We will be here all off season long, and we are approaching 19,000 subscribers here on the channel. So help me out, help yourself out as well. Hit that sub button for me right now.